EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in ICT and EdTech East Africa.
Hello and welcome to EdTech Monday Kenya, a monthly series of conversations. My name is Moses Kemibaro, your host and moderator for the Kenya edition. This month, we look at EdTech as an enabler for education for learners with visual impairments. The International Day of Persons with Disabilities is 3rd December 2022, which aims to promote the understanding of disability issues and mobilize support for the dignity, rights, and well-being of persons with disabilities. This year's theme is Transformative Solutions for Inclusive Development, the role of innovation in fueling an accessible and equitable world. The challenges for learners with visual impairments in Kenya include poor communication, poverty, long distances to school, lacking basic education resources like teachers, and low literacy rates within communities. However, on a positive note, Kenya has a policy in place that aims to make education accessible and inclusive by providing space, resources, and training for teachers in schools so that learners with and without visual impairments can learn alongside each other, enabled by EdTech solutions. As we explore how EdTech can be an enabler for education with learners with visual impairments, we ask, what measures can be taken by all stakeholders to ensure that learners with visual impairments can have access to EdTech solutions for learning? Please send us your responses to edtechmonday@mastercardfdn.org. Allow me to introduce our panel this month. Sheila Luta, Principal Education Officer, Special Needs Education at the Ministry of Education. Suparna Biswas, CEO, Kilimanjaro Blind Trust Africa. And Eric Godi, Board Member, United Disabled Persons of Kenya, and Secretary, Society of Professionals with Visual Disabilities. Rose Omolo is our sign language interpreter. Please share your respective thoughts and insights on the current state of EdTech for persons with visual impairments in Kenya. Maybe starting off with you, Sheila.
Thank you so much. I'd like to say that the government has invested heavily in technology and ICT devices and infrastructure in institutions of learning. So we are moving towards a technologically oriented education space. And I believe big journeys start with single steps, and we are doing well.
Small steps that take us forward.
Yes.
Excellent. Suparna, maybe you can also share your perspective.
So those with visual impairment have a special challenge, is that when they access education, they need to have assistive devices, that is technology, that will support them. For the past, let's say, 50 years, in Kenya and in Africa, the learners with visual impairment have been using a device, an assistive device called the Perkins Braille machine. Now, this Perkins Braille machine is a device that it's a 200-year-old technology, and obviously it is not adapted for the 21st century. So it's very, very important. The subject of access to digital literacy and education is very, very key for us at Kilimanjaro Blind Trust Africa, and we have focused on providing that access to digital education, that is quality access to digital literacy and skills that will take them from a very early learning stage in primary schools right up to university and technical colleges and access to employment. Thank
you. Eric, as somebody living with a visual impairment, maybe you can share with us your perspective.
Thank you. So at the United Disabled Persons of Kenya, and even my organizations of persons with disability, SOPVID, we know that the learner with visual impairment is not yet free at last. And this is because of, simply put, the challenges that Madam Suparna just put across, but also to add that there are other challenges. So, for example, when we talk about education technology, we are talking of those platforms that are digital, but also adding the element of teaching methodologies. And we're saying the learner with visual impairment is not yet there because 10% are the ones only able to access this digital platform. 18% of learners with disabilities are the ones accessing internet or internet facilities. And now we're also talking that while the government has done a lot of work towards providing electricity, there's a disparity between those in urban area and in rural areas. So you can see, but it all is not lost. It's not gloom and doom, as Madam Sheila just mentioned. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Eric. Sheila, what kind of initiatives has the Ministry of Education put in place that basically ensure that EdTech solutions for persons with visual impairments are widely available in Kenya? And also, how did the ministry navigate the pandemic scenario, given that children obviously were at home at that time, and now specifically looking at a scenario where those with visual impairments, how did we deal with that situation as a ministry?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, the government has invested heavily in the digital literacy program, commonly known as DLP, and we have to credit government for that, where schools were equipped with learner devices, either tablets or laptops, especially laptops for those in special schools, because of the adaptations that were necessary for learners with visual impairment, like the screen readers, where we were using JAWS software to make the devices accessible to learners with visual impairment. And we have seen more than 21,000 schools receiving the tablets and devices. We have seen delivery of over 200 embossers, and we've also seen delivery of over 100 projectors to assist the schools and especially learners with visual impairment. We also have collaboration with the World Bank, working with the Ministry of Education through Directorate of Project Coordination, where we have a program that seeks to equip schools in 30 counties and 110 sub-counties. And we went out and did a research and got the status of ICT infrastructure and devices in the institutions. And we have seen the first batch of procurement of assistive devices, where we had procurement of Orbit readers, smart boards, and other devices for learners with visual impairment. We also have a lot that has been done through public-private partnership, currently working with institutions like Kilimanjaro Blind Trust Africa, which is represented in the House today, the Action Foundation Kenya, which is collaborating with the Ministry of Education, Directorate of Special Needs Education, in a very big program targeting 3,000 girls with disabilities in STEM, where they are taught coding skills, mobile app development, and robotics. And it was good sitting down and just realizing that all is not lost, as Eric said, for learners and persons with visual impairment. We see them doing Scratch. We see them doing activities that involve technology. So I believe that we have begun, and with collaborations and discussions and available platforms like these ones, we are actually able to put our minds together and realize how much more we can do.
Coming back to your situation, it's clear that EdTech for learners with visual impairments will become more and more essential. And for many stakeholders that you serve through your organization, I think across 6 different countries in Africa, there are going to be the next steps needed to make EdTech for learners with visual impairments more inclusive and more widely adopted. Maybe you can share how your organization has also been working with schools like the Moi Girls High School to make this a reality for the learners who have visual impairment there.
Thank you. I'd really like to start by saying that the government of Kenya has done a lot in terms of policy for making access to inclusive schools possible. That is the first step. The whole idea of having special schools is actually, in a way, not very conducive to the independence and inclusion of young learners with visual impairment. So the fact that the government has very positive policies that support inclusive schools, and they are increasing more and more schools, inclusive schools around the country, is a fantastic step forward. However, it is understood that it is not possible for the government to address the gap in digital technology, because digital technology for visually impaired persons is expensive. An average device that is a multifunctional digital device costs upwards of $3,000. So an organization called Orbit Research in the US developed specially for developing countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, to make sure that a multifunctional, affordable digital braille device could be designed and put to use so that learners would have access to quality education at the same level as their sighted peers in an inclusive classroom. So Kilimanjaro Blind Trust Africa, we have focused uniquely on the access to quality education, that is digital literacy and skills for learners with visual impairment in Africa. And of course, Kenya turns out to be our laboratory because we are present here. And because of the support of the government in opening those doors for us and providing the support that we need in order to be able to relate to the learning institutions and support them in the way that they need support to make this paradigm change from mechanical technology to digital technology.
We know that the online and digital jobs can be a powerful way for persons with impairments to engage in the workforce with the visual impairments. How can schools help prepare learners with visual impairments for the digital jobs of the future, especially given some of the restrictions and limitations they might have?
Thank you for that. Let me start first by agreeing with what Sheila was saying, representing the government, that we really did see the government put in a lot of effort during COVID time. And as we move forward, I think that's a great place for the government to continue. We personally enjoyed some of the platform on for example, Ubongo, which was an online platform. I enjoyed some of the documentaries and the teaching on the radio. To your question, Moses, yeah, on the issue of accessibility, digital platforms for visually impaired persons. I'll start by telling you that one of the things that people with visual impairment experience is attitudinal barrier. So when you look at a person with visual impairment, you think this person can only be in a certain space, certain specific careers. So we're talking of teaching, sort of a minimal job, or if they can expand, they can be maybe telephone operators or lawyers. These are not like bad careers or what, they're actually good. But the thing I'm saying here is that they are limited, they are narrow. But the digital space now, the EdTech provides us with opportunity to explore. You know, Sheila mentioned the issues of coding. Visually impaired young learners are now coding. They are expanding and seeing that I can actually be a mathematician, I can be a programmer, I can be I can work with Cisco, I can do things with networks, with sort of device like Spanner is talking about here. We are saying that given this space, then our opportunities for careers can actually be expanded. And where do we start, as your question is asking, for the young learners in school? Because what seems to be not to be there is the issues of sensitization. Of course, the bigger one is the resources. Yeah, remember we're talking of products such as softwares and hardwares that this young visually impaired can engage, can use to grow these skills. So besides the challenge of these facilities, the one big one is to sensitize people to overcome that issue of attitudinal barrier. Thank you.
I think that's a very valid point you made. I think there's a presumption and opinion that they're not able to do some of the things that are needed for, especially in the future of work, where everything goes digital. But I'm delighted to see that that potential is very much there. I'd like to come back again to you and just ask, from your point of view, we're looking out at various initiatives that you think through EdTech can make all these possibilities going forward in the next 2 to 5 years. From a ministry standpoint, what do you think can be done to enhance the opportunities for our learners using EdTech, especially those who are visually impaired?
Yeah, what I think is that we really need to concentrate on teacher capacity building and other relevant stakeholders, because as much as technology is coming into the learning spaces, it is not pushing away the teacher. The teacher is a facilitator. So when we look at, let me use the word regular ICTs, we have a challenge with use of assistive devices and technologies. I may be ICT or what we call techno-savvy, but I don't know how to use a tactile machine. I don't know how to use an embosser. So we really need to invest in capacity building, not just for teachers, but all stakeholders, especially the educationists, quality assurance and standards officers, the parents, everyone, because for us to move globally as far as technology is concerned, everyone needs to understand what we are doing. And especially for learning spaces for learners or any other person with visual impairment, I think they're the ones who benefit most from the assistive devices and technologies, both software and hardware. And there are numerous kinds of machines and technologies that we need to expose ourselves to, practice. And so I think teacher capacity is still important. We will not wish it away. We also need to enhance public-private partnership, as I said, because Suprana said, talked about the high cost of the assistive devices and technologies, and even the mobility devices. Sometimes we talk about the learning devices, we forget about mobility devices, like for those maybe with physical impairment or those who may have multiple disabilities.
What about you, Suprana? Your perspectives on the way forward? How do we, take this to, more students, more learners with visual impairment, and really be much more inclusive for the future?
Thanks. I'd like to build on what Sheila has just said, and that is about empowering the teachers. Young learners, so we, just for perspective, we are in 62 schools across Kenya, across 36 counties in Kenya. And of course, every region has its own particularity. But we have found that the learners, they adapt to the devices very quickly. But the resistance comes from the teachers. And I think that there is a lot of work yet to be done. So we provide user training for teachers and also school-based technicians to ensure that there is continuity of use of the devices. So it's not sufficient just to provide access to digital devices. There has to be full service accorded to the whole concept of education using technology, because the devices break down or it's not properly used. And so there has to be a whole other work done to support the use of technology. And this is what has been a big gap, which in our case, we have tried to follow up. And of course, the government knows about it and they appreciate the fact that we are providing this kind of full service. And that is why they also have accepted the Orbit Reader, which was developed specifically to provide access to technology and access to education for visually impaired, as the assistive device of choice. Of course, there will be many others that bring in other technology or similar technology. But the fact is that it has to be tried, it has to be tested, and there has to be a kind of standardization across the country where access to quality. So we also we struggle to get access to quality curriculum content from the government because they are way behind in production of even hard copy textbooks. So it's about making sure that those come together so that the digital curriculum content is in the devices.
So Eric, maybe you can give us your final remarks, again, just looking towards the future, how to make, EdTech work for inclusivity when it comes to learners with visual impairment.
Thank you very much. Let me just start by the one important key that my colleagues are talking about here, partnership. What Sheila just mentioned and what Spanner just even giving us that good news. It's all about partnership. And one key thing that we should not also forget is the voice of now these visual impaired learners. I mean, we have to bring that voice on board. They have what we call the lived experience. So, and also we must, and since we are talking to the tech community, let's not forget the issues of accessibility. While you can make our life very easy, it will be always good to make it accessible. And accessibility is all about how persons with visual impairment and even others with disabilities perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with products and environments and services that you can provide to us. So for me, as a person with visual impairment, I'm liking what I'm hearing from Sheila, representing the government. I'm liking what I'm hearing from Spanner, and I'm looking forward, moving forward. These young learners, those in the colleges, and those who are looking in the opportunities for employment, to use this technology, EdTech, to improve their lives, their welfare. And I'll mention, this is what some of my friends say, that while for you, technology makes work easier. For me, it makes life possible. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. Last week, we visited Moi Girls High School, who have learners with and without visual impairments attending classes together. We interviewed a visually impaired learner, a teacher who has been trained to teach visually impaired learners, and a visual impairment subscriber who works closely with learners and teachers.
In primary school, I was in a visually impaired school, and now when I came to this school, it was a kind of different, having been studying with the other students.
My experience with the visually impaired has been an amazing one, because my previous understanding of who they were has been really challenged by the fact that I've interacted with them. I have learned that these girls are highly experienced and are gifted in different ways. I have an advantage of having interacted with the braille machine and the bulky papers, and of course also learning through the newly obtained technology of the Orbit reader. And like every other person in this country or anywhere else would appreciate, the technology is good because the Orbit reader that the girls use right now, I could consider it a laptop of some sort for the girls who are visually impaired, though they can also use the normal laptops.
The Orbit readers have made work for us easier. Like you find the braille machine are so bulky, like carrying them anywhere, everywhere is difficult because they are so heavy.
The academic experience, all my work has, over time, become easier and convenient. We are able to access content from wherever we are, and it's nowadays more portable.
It can store books, so you don't have to carry books anywhere. And like the braille machines, writing with them is so tiring. So you find like the Orbit readers, you can You can store notes there.
You know, with the accessibilities to resources, they are sort of assured of passing exams because they have the content, they have the knowledge.
As they did with the Orbit readers, they have to find some other ways, like for doing mathematics and sciences, so that we are able to do all the subjects like others, like physics. You find that it's difficult for us to do.
If there's something that can be done so that all the subjects that they do with others, especially in an integrated system like our school, so that they don't have to be isolated during some subjects. Like in maths, they can't do it together with the others in class. So if there's something that can be done so that even that mathematics, they don't have to do on a different, in a different place. They just do it together with the other students. I think that would boost their morale.
Orbit reader is very challenging when you're dealing with maths and also Kiswahili. So if we could come up with a more inclusive Orbit reader that accommodates all these subjects, that would be great.
Thank you all for watching this edition. Follow us for more conversations on the MasterCard Foundation YouTube channel and the Young Africa Works Facebook page. My name is Moses Kimibaro. See you again in the next edition of EdTech Monday Kenya.
EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in ICT and EdTech East Africa.